You have this framework for helping people live a more precautionary, or as you say, a discerning, having a discerning approach to who you let into your world.
Correct.
Can you talk about that and how your framework can help protect individuals from letting narcissistic people in the first place?
Number one, slow down, slow way down. Because again, body and mind are so interesting. They need a minute, right? They really need a minute for you to be with someone, pay attention to that sense of psychological safety. In some ways, it's also equally important for us to know how we feel in our bodies when we don't feel safe, right? So if we're feeling that or we're not feeling that, like when we're with somebody who is safe and comfortable and you're having a conversation characterized by reciprocity, your body relaxes. You find yourself like, oh, I'm not trying, I'm not being performative, I'm being myself, versus it's interesting. I recently had an encounter with someone where I did not feel comfortable. I did not. Even the way I was sitting almost like hunched over. My physiologically, my body was almost putting itself in an uncomfortable position. My head hurt at the end of the circumstance. This is somebody I do not want to see again. I now know that, and that's now on my list of people I don't want to see again. I very much learned to slow down, and after the event, where I'd usually just rush into my car, I sat in my event, I closed my eyes, I breathed, I paid attention to how my body feels. I'm like, okay, my head is killing me, my neck is killing me, my gut was killing me. All of that was not comfortable. And I'm going to use this as a contrast. Like right now, I'm enjoying this time with you. I feel very much in my body. I feel like this is a very mutual interaction. See what I'm saying? So when I leave out, this felt like a very safe space to me. So we pay attention to that, number one. Number two, we have to have our good, safe people, right? Our sounding boards, our people who, when we go to them and say, I think I feel crazy, you'll say, you're not crazy. Like, talk to me, and I will listen to you. You don't need a lot. There's only 50 people like that. If you even have 1, 2, or 3, you're doing great. One of them might even be a therapist, but have sounding boards. That's a huge piece to this sort of this idea of being discerning, of, again, taking it slow, paying attention to your body, paying attention to what you're telling yourself. There was a time, this uncomfortable interaction I had, there was a time I would have thought, oh, Ramani, you can't get along with anyone, or you're so unsophisticated or something like that. I'm like, no, I just didn't feel right. So part of that is giving yourself, you can't gaslight yourself. And I think we gaslight ourselves all the time. We tell ourselves there's something wrong with us. We did it wrong. We're the ones who are damaged, whatever it may be, instead of trusting ourselves. And interestingly, it doesn't have to be an indictment of the other person. I'm not saying this other person's a quote unquote bad person. For whatever reason, my body was not feeling comfortable in this person's presence, whatever that means. And my body feels comfortable in a lot of people's presences. So there was something in that dance that wasn't working. I kind of knew what it was, but I paid attention to that. And so I'm a big fan of writing stuff down. I really think that we think we're going to remember stuff and we don't. And there's something, and I'm talking writing it down, ideally with a pencil in your hand, not just in your phone. That sort of physiological experience of pen or pencil in hand on paper, that can often help us sort of register memories in a way that we're also starting to trust ourselves more. But all of those things together do make us more discerning. And I'm going to give you this example too, and this has a lot of bearing on your podcast. Please. Which is when you think about the kinds of things you talk about, the things you've talked about with other guests, of how careful people are, like you said, putting toxic substances in your mouth. Don't eat this. Don't eat something that's unprocessed, or don't eat super processed food. Don't drink this. Don't smoke this. Don't do that. Don't, right? So we spend a lot of time being super discerning about what we consume, what we put in our bodies. If we brought that level of discernment to people, we'd be so much more healthy. So if you can sit in the market and say, organic or grown here, and spend all that time in your fancy grocery store figuring that out, then you owe yourself to spend the equal amount of effort in being discerning about the human beings you let close to you. It's far more important.
That's powerful. I think that will change, right? That right there will impact a lot of people, because you are getting involved before something can become an issue much later on. So going back to that lesson, it's slowing down, using the process of discernment, paying attention to the body. What do I feel in my body? Maybe even journaling it, talking it out with somebody. You know what? I'm so excited about this potential business partnership, but I don't know. I'm like always anxious around this person, or I feel I feel invalidated when I leave. Talk out your feelings that are there. So that's all part of the process of slowing down and actually processing. I've also heard you share a quote from Maya Angelou that some people know. And that quote is, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
Is that something that we can also do?
Yeah.
Is actually when you're meeting somebody for the first time and they're telling you about how their entire life, everybody's wronged them and they're playing the victim at every stage. Tell us how this quote can be useful for people.
That quote, I mean, again, it's Maya Angelou's genius. So of course the quote is genius. When people show you who they are, believe them. What I love about that quote is she's telling you to pay attention to what the person's showing you. This is not an assumption it's not a perception in your mind. They're behaving in a certain way. I've always loved this Maya Angelou quote because it is about weighing in on a person's behavior. They've now done the thing, whether it's lie to you, betray you, treat you with disregard, invalidated you. When they're showing you that this is in their behavioral repertoire, sit up and pay attention. Because our best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if people say, well, they lied to me twice, so I think they've learned and they're not going to lie to me again. I'm like, I hope you open up some betting on odds on this one, because I'm taking that bet. Thank you so much. They're going to do this. So it's that what she's saying in this quote is that behavior is consistent. And when someone's showing you who they are, don't fall into the vat of our cognitive dissonantly, trauma-bonded, driven justifications and rationalizations and explaining it away. Believe it. It doesn't mean you have to run away from somebody the first time you meet them. It might mean that you may not scramble to see them a second time. It might be you move. Again, that slowness is so important. Taking your time, continually listening to your body. In the book, I actually make this, I talk about something I had learned once in grad school. It's the rule of threes, right? The first time something happens, it happens, whatever. The second time that same thing happens, it's a coincidence. The third time it happens is a pattern. That rule of threes helps sometimes for people like, that just happened 3 times. Like, it's a pattern. I understand how at one time we don't want to just sort of cut and run. That feels like a bit much, right? Even at 2, but 3, come on.
Part of that could also include, especially in the early stages, when people are dating and just getting to know somebody, or even making friends with somebody, somebody who's maybe persistent about wanting to be friends with you, is also seeing how they're having this behavior, how they're implementing this behavior with other people. How do they talk about their wife? How do they treat their wife? How do they treat the waiter? How do they treat the people around them? If they're talking shit about everybody,
that's right. And
you're next.
I love that you're bringing that up. Is watching how somebody treats the most vulnerable people around them can be revelatory, but you also have to be careful. It's interesting. Sometimes narcissistic people will actually be unctuous with people in sort of like a person who's a server in a restaurant, or a person valet parking their car and peel off the $100 bills, because it's an easy place to get validation. Oh, you're such a great guy, right?
It's a performance.
Right, it's performance. It's a performance. So you're looking at it in its sort of totality. You're also looking at how you'll see them and they'll be smiling at someone like, hey, how you going? Yeah, you're a great guy. And then when they're gone, like, ugh, I hate that person. You're like, woo, that was a quick switch. And and I'll tell you this, they're going to do it to you.
Wow.
That I promise you.
You shared a very powerful story of, I heard you on another podcast and while I was feverishly taking notes, you shared the story how you were at a very big public speaking engagement or like a stage. I was imagining almost like a TED stage or something, like a conference. And somebody went on stage and they were so incredibly charming and the audience was there, and they got off stage. And that person, you had an interaction with them, and all their charm that they put out there into the world that they gave to everybody, you felt that they were just looking right through you. They literally couldn't even see you or be with you in that moment. They were literally just looking through you.
And I think that is listen, what that tells me is, again, it's not an indictment of that person, but is that someone I want to get close to? No. And that's what because remember that, again, this is on a continuum. That person's very wise, very smart. I'll continue to read their books. Do I want to have dinner with them? Hell no.
Doesn't mean you can't learn from them.
Doesn't mean I can't
but
learn
have
from
them
them.
in the right box,
yeah,
the
but
right
have
container.
them in the right box. Exactly. And I think that that's what it is. So we want people to be all things to us. It's an interesting part of our celebrity culture. We want celebrities to be normal people that are like us. They're not. They don't wash dishes. They don't do the norm. They don't wait in lines. They don't go through TSA. They're not doing that stuff. They're not like us. So let's stop trying to sort of, but I can be entertained by their song and I can be completely entranced by their performance. I don't think I want them to be my friend.
Such an important point. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just ask you, when we started off this podcast, we were talking about how our lives can radically improve when we remove these narcissistic individuals who are taking years off of it. And you gave a whole list of things on a health level that people could be going through that you've personally seen, that when they remove the toxic relationship in their life, there's been a big improvement. You've done major surgery in your own life over the years. These could be quasi-business colleagues or individuals that you've had to deal with. I'm also getting the impression that maybe some family members or people from the content that you've shared. What did you notice with your own health and happiness on a personal level when you either put the appropriate distance or removed those relationships?
It improved precipitously. Don't get me wrong. I do sometimes feel grief, which I can only characterize as a heaviness, this could have been different, but it's not. But I'll tell you something, I'd had the experience some time ago. Something really, really wonderful happened to me. Wonderful. It's the kind of thing I would have wanted to scream from rooftops. But there's someone close to me. And once upon a time, I would have told this person. And they would have been like, what, huh? Like kind of a who cares? Or they would have made it about them. This time I learned to not tell them. They still don't have any idea. Even though everyone else in the world knows about it, they don't. And others around me were like, you're not going to tell them? And I'm like, why? They're not going to listen. This is so precious to me. This is so important to me. I'm so happy about it. Why would I take that precious part of me? It was like losing 60 pounds overnight. It was such a freeing feeling. People said, why don't you feel grief that you couldn't tell them? I said, because I've already had my heart broken too many times. So at this point, there was where healing takes you is that there was a caring for you and your child self, your spiritual self, and you don't get to know this. And you know what? You lose, because this was a wonderful thing for me to share with you. And you never showed me to be a deserving recipient of hearing this kind of thing from me. So no more for you. And that was very, very liberating for me. And there's multiple that discernment piece, because it literally, like I gave you that analogy. It's like you have these precious things in your house that are worth $1 gazillion, and you keep giving them to people who just throw them on the ground and smash them and render them valueless and that were meaningful to you. I'm like, I see my precious things on the shelf. And only very, very selected people get to participate in that. I'm not taking them to people who would destroy these sacred parts of myself. So that to me has been incredibly freeing. And so I'm not wasting time, energy, and psychological bandwidth getting into the mud. Folks are like, aren't you sad that no, I'm not. I'm happy about the thing I did. I'm really happy about it. That's my subjective experience. And those I trust and I feel safe with get to learn about it too. Other people might learn about it in a public forum. But I think that it's that once you really understand how things work, you stop thinking that a bandsaw is a potato peeler. If you keep treating the bandsaw as a potato peeler, you're going to get your fingers cut off.
You shared two super important words that you go deep into in your book. You shared the words healing, and you also shared acceptance. Mm-hmm. And that there's a relationship between the two of those that you just described there. But I just wanted to highlight it because those two things are deeply connected to each other. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't heal until you get to radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is, this is not going to change. This relationship is not, the jackpot's not coming out of the slot machine. This relationship is not magically going to turn a corner. It's not going to be, I'm just going to speak my truth and you're going to get it. There's no magical couples therapist that's going to turn this around. It's not going to change. That now, acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with it. Acceptance doesn't mean you're signing off on it. As you see it clearly, it is not going to change. It is not your fault. And when they do hurtful things, it's still going to hurt. Some people say, well, I accepted. Why does this still hurt? I'm like, because they're saying something hurtful. That's how that works. So, and armed with that, you then walk through what I always say, a very long, dark corridor called grief. And that grief corridor often leaves people thinking, did I do this wrong? Because I feel absolutely terrible. I said, just keep walking. I promise you the light's going to come on just as you round that bend. They come around that corner and they say, okay, I worked this through. Again, it is a heaviness. People who go through this say, I wish it had been I wish my parents had loved each other deeply. I wish I'd had a happier childhood. I wish I'd been able to give my kids a marriage, a happy marriage between their parents. I wish I'd had a different kind of a career. We can have that wistfulness. But life hands us what it hands us. And we see that, that's no one lives a perfectly programmed life. And anyone who does, sadly, we're just waiting for that other shoe to drop. It's always going to drop. That's the nature of life. And so that's why I always say, whenever I'm at a party or anything, I'm always trying to find the people who've actually been through something, because they're always the most interesting people. People are like, my life's great and everything's great and I love everyone. I'm like, ugh. And then I'll go find the people who have suffered. I'm like, come sit next to me. And so, but it's that acceptance, that's what starts the ball rolling. And it's the hardest part of this process, because when a person finally gets their head around it, they just engage with all of this differently. And we all carry this heavy stuff. Through that heavy stuff, we can find meaning and purpose through the suffering. Some people they go back to school to become therapists. Some people become coaches. Some people volunteer in domestic violence programs. Some people go back to school after being told they were dumb their entire lives. There's a lot of amazing things. People make art, but people take that pain, they take that suffering, and they take, above all else, the clarity. Because I got to tell you, it's like batting with weights on. You take the weights off the bat, and all of a sudden you're bashing that thing over the back fence in the stadium. Because now a lot of people never had weights on their bat. But once you get the weights off that bat, you are just grand slam after grand slam, because there's a strength in you, and you're no longer wasting your time doing the heavy lift of the impossibility of trying to appease the narcissist.
As part of that healing journey, is part of this that people have a hard time imagining what their life would be like without this individual in it? And is that also part of this concept that you talked about earlier, which is the trauma bond, that I'm actually cannot imagine how my life would be, how great it could be? Or another side of it is, I'm scared of who am I without this person? YouTube, if you enjoyed what you just saw, keep watching for more great content on how to improve your brain and your life.
It's narcissistic bosses, when it's a narcissistic marriage, narcissistic family members. And so I can't put too fine a point on this when I say, I think this is the public health issue of our time.